Hey guys, happy Mother's Day. Today I'm tasting the Blanton single barrel lineup. Hey guys, it's the Drink Pro here yet again. Happy Mother's Day to all those wonderful mothers out there. I really hope you reach out, call your mom, put her on a video chat, and support the people that have supported you for so long. For this special occasion, I decided to do a blind tasting of Blanton's single barrel bourbon. Blanton's is actually a really popular, well-known brand. It's also got a lot of flack for being tater bait. The prices on this bottles have gone through the roof. Some people don't think Blanton's is as good as the hype would suggest or the price would suggest, but it's a very popular bourbon and something that needs to be addressed. And I thought, what better way than a blind tasting? But first I want to give you a little bit of history about Blanton's bourbon. Blanton's bourbon was actually first released in 1984 by Elmer T. Lee, who was the master distiller at Buffalo Trace at the time. Now at this time, Buffalo Trace was still the George T. Stagg distillery, which I discussed in my George T. Stagg lineup tasting. But Elmer T. Lee had worked early in his career with a guy named Colonel Albert Bacon Blanton. Colonel Blanton was the president of the Buffalo Trace distillery from 1921 to 1952. Early in Elmer T. Lee's career, he had worked with Colonel Blanton. Part of what he noticed is that whenever there were dignitaries or important people or good friends of Colonel Blanton coming into town, he would go and choose a special barrel from Warehouse H. Now, Warehouse H is the only metal-clad warehouse at Buffalo Trace. And part of what's interesting about this is that it means there's much more temperature fluctuation because the metal does not insulate as well as the wood would. This can change how the whiskey tastes and change the nature of the product. And Colonel Blanton swore that this was some of the best whiskey that they produced. The year before Elmer T. Lee decided to retire as master distiller, he created Blanton's single barrel bourbon. It wasn't until years later that they added these fun little horse toppers. That was in 1999. The first release was in 84. Now these little toppers are also subject to a lot of controversy because it does kind of add to the tater bait idea that this bourbon is overrated and that it's just a collection item. But it's kind of fun to be able to collect all the letters, spell out the word Blanton's, and have each individual position of a horse running on a track. It's just a fun thing to do. Buffalo Trace doesn't release what is in their mash bill, but we know that Blanton's is mash bill number 2, which is their high rye mash bill, and it's suspected to be between 12 and 15% alcohol. Fun fact also, Blanton's is not owned by Buffalo Trace. Age International actually owns the name Blanton's, not Buffalo Trace, and that's a Japanese-owned company. So you get some interesting special releases that make it to Japan that won't make it to the United States, even though the whiskey is being made in the United States. So the 6 different whiskeys I have in front of us today are a Blanton standard single barrel that you'd pick up off the shelf if you can find one. I've got a store pick that was picked by a local liquor store where they went down and actually grabbed the barrel they wanted after tasting several different ones. I've got the Blanton's Red and Black. Now those two are Japan-only releases. The Black is released at 40%, while the Red is 46.5% alcohol. What's interesting to me about Blanton's Black and Red is that they're both 8-year bourbons as opposed to a standard 6-year, which is the typical age of the Blantons that are released for other products. I've also got a Blanton's Gold, which is a 6-year whiskey, and it's at 51.5%, so a little bit higher proof. Now the highest proof in the lineup is a Blanton's Straight from the Barrel. Now this is uncut, just what they pull out of the barrel. I'm not sure if it's non-chill filtered or not. I probably could look that up, but I didn't bother. The particular barrel I have was at 63.5%, so it's pretty high alcohol compared to the others. Now you might think, oh, that's going to ruin your blind experiment. It's going to be so easy to tell which is what. Not necessarily. The flavor of a whiskey does not always correspond to how high of proof it is. There are some very smooth, very high proof whiskeys, and there are some lower proof 46%-ish things like we've got today that can really pack a punch. So it'll be very interesting to see how that affects my tasting in this lineup. First thing I need to do is give some shout outs. Thanks so much Jim Caudell for giving me the Blanton Straight from the Barrel sample. Thanks so much Cody Flynn for the Blanton's Gold sample. And I want to thank Ryan Renfro from the Naptown Bourbon Club for the Red and Black import-only samples from Japan. You can see I'm repping a little bit of their merch. And Ryan was also nice enough to give me some cool Naptown Bourbon Club glasses. Now, you see I'm not using them right now, and that's because I want consistency. All 6 of these are classic Glencairn glasses, so there's no glass variation in my tasting. But I will say, of the different glasses I've tried, and I've tried many different ones, I really like these. So you might see these popping up in future episodes. A common complaint about Blanton's is that the older stuff was better and the new stuff is just not as good. Well, I can't speak to that. I don't have an older Blanton's in this lineup today. The only whiskey I'm not certain about the dump date on is the Blanton's Red and Black. I was able to find it for the Straight from the Barrel that I have. I got a picture of the bottle. And I also had it written on a tag on the Blanton's Gold I had. And they were all either 2019 or 2020. Because these are single barrel products, they write the date on the bottles from when they removed the whiskey from the barrels and put them into the bottles. And they also give you some information about where in the rick house the barrel was actually located. It's kind of a fun way to figure out what products you like and which ones you prefer from the Blanton's product line. Now, as I said before, this is being done totally blind, so I don't know which is what, and I'm not going to look at it until the very end. Now, you'll be able to see right here which whiskey is what. I'll probably put a guide right here because I've got them so close together. But I have no idea. I'm going into this totally blind, and I've got my flavor notes right here, just a little whiskey wheel and some suggested flavors. But let's go ahead and get this going. I'm excited to try it out. First thing I'm going to do is just smell each whiskey right in a row, back to back to back, boom, 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 and see if I get any first impressions on the nose. This is a lot sweeter than the second one. Ooh. 4 and 1 smell a lot alike to me, and 3 had a little sour note, where 2 is very weak sauce. I would not be surprised at all if 2 was the 80 proofer. Oh, interesting. So 5 is really soft too, and there's not a lot happening in it. Oh, but 6. The apple on number 6 jumps right out of the glass. It's very powerful. And I will say, if I look at the colors, I think this one might be the straight from the barrel because it does appear to be the darkest, which is typical of higher proof whiskeys because they haven't been cut with water. Let's see if I can pick out some different scents between these whiskeys now that I've gotten an initial rundown done. So number 1, very classic vanilla caramel. It's very classic bourbon. I kind of expect a lot of similarities, so I'm not going to be too redundant on these. I'm probably just going to give you, right off the bat, you're going to get vanilla, you're going to get caramel. You might get a little bit of baking spice. You're going to get honey sweetness. Those are very classic notes that I always pull out of blends. So I don't expect to repeat those 6 times, hopefully. I'm getting just a hint of black pepper on the nose in number 1, which is kind of fun. Definitely getting cinnamon and clove on the nose. Those are classic Blanton's notes. I'm getting a little bit of a malty, sweet cereal note also. I would say I get just a hint of blackberry, maybe a raspberry. There's a little bit of a berry quality, but it's very subtle. Let's smell number 2. Now, right off the bat, number 2 is much more grain forward. I'm really getting that corn. I'm really getting hints of that dustiness. Definitely also getting the honey and the classic Blanton's notes. But they might be a little bit quieter. The dusty corn is much more prominent. I'm also actually pulling a little bit of the rye spice out of number 2. And like I said before, it is a higher rye mash bill, the mash bill that goes into Blanton's. But it's not so high rye that I would expect that kind of kick. That's something you get from Wild Turkey, where the rye is much more prominent in the whiskey. I'm also getting some brown sugar instead of the honey on number 2. It's a little bit richer, deeper. I'm also getting a little bit of pine. The herbal and the woody notes are more prominent in number 2. That's kind of showing up in an interesting way. Let's go to number 3. Whoa, now number 3 is totally different. Number 3 is incredibly sweet. It's almost sickly sorghum candy sweetness. And for as sweet as it is, I don't get a lot of berry. I get more citrus notes. I get some lemon. Definitely still that cotton candy sweetness. As I give it some more time in the nose, I'm starting to get a little bit of cinnamon, but none of those deeper, richer nutmeg or clove. It's just cinnamon, very sweet, maybe like Red Hot's candy almost, but not an artificial cinnamon, a more herbal, bitter cinnamon. Of the first 3, number 3 is definitely the most monotone, even though I think it's a very interesting and delicious smell. It's not as complex as 1 and 2 for me. Number 4. All right, now number 4 has a really distinct caramel toffee. Oh man, it's like wonderful Werther's butterscotch, toffee, caramel, all this sweet sugar wonderfulness. I'm really not getting much on the nose of baking spice, maybe just a tiny hint of nutmeg, but it's not very much. That really is just exactly like a straight Werther's. All right, number 5. Whoa, guys, number 5 really goes a different direction. It's incredibly herbal. Oh, it's like a pine tree. It's like a pine forest on number 5. I'm getting like juniper and maybe a hint of blueberry and definite rich pines. I really didn't expect these bourbons to be this different. I mean, I figured, they're all Blanton's expressions. It's going to be pretty much the same shit. No, these are really different on the nose. More different on the nose, in fact, than the George T. Staggs that I tasted previously. Wow. I don't really care for the smell of that one as much. I like the sweetness. I like the fruitiness. Those are notes I really look for, sweetness and fruitiness, but it's just such a different direction. This almost reminds me of the Willet that I tasted in the past. It's got such a herbal vegetation, not like sour vegetation, but like fresh herbs vegetation on the nose. All right, I'm almost certain now that number 6 is straight from the barrel. I got the ethanol burn that I didn't get on any of the others. And on the back of the palate, I'm getting this really noticeable, like burnt sugar. Definitely creme brulee. It's got the creaminess. It's got the sweetness. I'm also getting a little bit of cocoa on the nose, actually, like a slight milk chocolate. I also get this sort of toasted cinnamon almond thing going on. It's really wonderful. Maybe a hint of cherry and honey. Very complex nose. I'm almost certain straight from the barrel is number 6. You know, I didn't expect it to be that obvious, but maybe I'm wrong. But it seems pretty obvious. All right, let's give number 1 a taste. Really interesting. Number 1 has this fruitiness on the back of the palate. At the finish, I get a little bit of like the pepper dance on the tongue, but I also get this interesting berry fruitiness. Classic notes. Slight honey, slight vanilla. It's very quiet. It's hard to pick too much out of this. This might actually be the 80 proofer. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 is much sweeter than number 1. It's creamier. I get a little bit more wood in the mid palate. Oh, and this wonderful warmth that coats my mouth into the finish. The pepper isn't centralized in my tongue. It kind of coats the entire mouth and gives it this wonderful like cinnamon sweetness. A little bit of hints of bitter. The wood barrel just shows up barely. Very classic sweet vanilla up front, but then that goes away. You get this really creamy mid palate and then this wonderful woody finish. Ooh. That's really good. That's going to be hard to beat. All right, here we go to number 3. Oh man, I'll tell you what, after tasting 1 and 2 and then I go to the nose on number 3, I get this real sourness. Like a real sourness. Oh, I'm not sure I'm going to like this, guys, honestly. Like, that sourness is prominent, much more so than I expected. All right, let's give it a taste. Very different. Number 3 is very different than the others. A lot more woodiness. It's got a lot more edge to it. You know what? I'm betting number 3 is a Japanese release. I was talking before about how the older releases are from Japan. They're 8 year to the 6 year. It could be the gold because it's got more flavor. It's got sharper notes. It's a little bit higher alcohol, I would guess. But it could also be a Japan release because the wood is so much more prominent. Oh, it's kind of fun. You get this slight sour fruit right up front. Sweet and sour at the same time, then immediately goes away. You get the grain. Then it comes in with this nice woodiness. Not too sharp, not too bitter, but definite woodiness, like a soft oak. All of a sudden, your mouth is just overtaken by this strong wood. There's a little bit of pepper, a little bit of barrel bitter. It just spreads all over. It's a real experience, number 3. Here we go, number 4. Oh, it smells so good. Ah! Oh my god, this smells like candy. God damn. Okay, here we go. Guys, I don't know what number 4 is yet, but it is the one. Your whole mouth gets taken over at the mid palate into the finish with this woodiness, this bite. Certainly with the higher proof ones, part of also the reason I think number 1 is probably 80 proof, we'll see. Oh, and this one lasts forever. Oh my god, it lingers so long. Guys, alright, let me taste it again, try to give you some real notes. Classic, slightly sweet, slight dusty corn, vanilla, caramel, and then it changes in the mid palate. You get this nuttiness, slight sourness shows up, sweet, rich caramel toffee front of the palate. I love that switch from sweet to sour. From front to mid palate, it goes into this sourness. Then you get this woodiness. Oh, and it just takes over your whole mouth with these barrel bitters that are really subtle but very prominent. You know they're there, but they're not taking over. Then you get this rush of pepper, this heat. It almost burns your mouth, but it doesn't hurt like an alcohol burn. It's like a spicy pepper burn. And you still taste the woodiness and the char and a little bit of maybe even a smokiness, but not like a peat. More like a touch of campfire. I don't know yet which is my favorite. I don't know yet which is what, but number 4 is the most complex by a mile. Number 4 just blew me away, so I'm gonna take a drink of number 3 after taking some water to clear my mind of number 4. Okay, let's go to number 5. Whoa. Fruit. Number 5 gives me all fruit. Oh, okay. Number 5 is my favorite so far. I love the complexity of number 4. It's super sweet, it's super rich, it changes, it's complex, it goes all the way. But my personal palate leans towards sweet and fruity and light. And number 5 is giving me all of that wonderfulness. And it still has a little bit of wood on the finish. It still has a little bit of nuttiness in the mid palate. It's enough to keep me coming back. It's enough to feel like something else is happening. It's not just one-noted. I actually get a little bit of white chocolate right off the bat with number 5. Then it moves immediately over to like raspberry, strawberry, very berry forward. I get a lot of honey. I get a lot of like a cane sugar sweetness. I get a very slight pecan and cinnamon, like a pecan pie, and the woodiness at the end is still there. It's not as powerful as number 4. If you want something that really shows you that it's been in a barrel and it's got age and wood and interestingness, number 4 is the way to go. But number 5 is no slouch. The berries, I love it. I love what's happening number 5. Let's check number 6. Oh man, number 6 is hot compared to these others. It's got to be straight from the barrel. That was my thought from the beginning. Let me take another sip and acclimate. It's worth noting, guys, we're jumping from 51.5 to 63.5 between the highest and second highest proof whiskeys. Whichever one is straight from the barrel, it's number 6. It has a significantly higher proof than any of the others. So it's going to be a different experience. I was hoping it wouldn't be so drastic because I like the idea of having some fun and picking them out, but it's pretty drastic. Walnut, caramel, honey, right off the bat, they're very strong, prominent, rich, deep flavors. Your mid-palate kind of converts into this more gentle vanilla note. There's a lot more gentle vanilla in the mid-palate. As it shifts into the finish, I'm getting a lot of really interesting things happening. A lot of the sweetness is kind of dissipating and is moving into this heat that's like a bright, peppery note. The woodiness is becoming prominent, but it's very slow and steady increase on the woodiness. And interestingly, the flavors don't linger as long on this one as they did in number 4. That's really interesting to note because I'm guessing right now that number 4 is going to be gold. Second highest proof, also more expensive, gives me more burn, more flavor, more complication. All right, so I've added some water. I had to change the battery in the camera. I'm sure this is not the exact same angle, but y'all, thank you for bearing with me. Now that I've added water to 4 and 6, and they've had a little bit to sit, actually, let's give them a second taste. Whoa! God, the smell of 4 is always like candy. I love it. Whoa! Whoa! 4 almost reads like a scotch now. I get this slight smokiness and this woodiness. Sweet. Oh my God, this reminds me of a Speyside. That's just crazy. I've never had a bourbon that reminded me this much of a scotch. That's really interesting. Yeah, definite fruity notes up front. Then you get this very slight sea breeze, a little bit of smoke, just a tiny, tiny bit of peat. Now let's try number 6. Number 6 is real woody still. It's very sharp still. I'm gonna add a couple more drops of water. If in fact number 6 is the straight from the barrel, it makes sense to proof it down even more because it's so much higher than everything else. Oh, I'm getting a lot more caramel in the nose now. A lot more sorghum, sweetness, and caramel. All right, here we go. Yeah, it becomes a lot more basic. It's just not as interesting. Yeah, number 6 is just not as interesting after adding water to it. It just becomes very like generic Blanton's notes. Vanilla, caramel, sweet, hints of nuttiness in the mid-palate, and then it moves into this more rounded woodiness at the end. Nothing remarkable. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is tell you what I think each of these are. And then, after that, and after we do the reveal, I'll tell you which my favorite was. I think number 6 has got to be straight from the barrel. And I'm going to say number 4 is gold. So, straight from the barrel and gold. Everything else is a little bit of crapshoot. I think number 1 is Blanton's Black. Because Blanton's Black is 80 proof. I didn't get much out of number 1. I think that probably makes sense. All 3 of the rest of these are the same proof level. That deduction can mostly be done by proof. I got no proof here. So let me go in once more to each of them and see which one I think is what. One of them is going to be a Japan release, one of them is a store pick from a local store, and one of them is just generic, run-of-the-mill Blantons. Alright, number 3, well actually number 5 in the grand scheme of things, is my favorite. It's the most different. I love what's happening here. So do I trust my local store or Japan more? I've got my decision. Okay, number 1, Blanton's Black. Number 2, Standard Blantons. Number 3, Blanton's Store Pick. Number 4, Gold. Number 5, Japan Blanton's Red. Number 6, straight from the barrel. Let's find out if I'm right. So first off, these bottles, the way this has been done, my girlfriend Ilana has labeled everything, so that's how I know what's what. Standard generic Blanton's is E. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Not good at all. Whoa. Number 4 is standard generic Blantons. I thought this was Blanton's Gold. I gave it a lot of really good notes. That is embarrassing. Okay. So the Blanton store pick, what letter is that? B. Now B is the one I thought was generic, regular-ass Blantons. That actually is good in my mind. That means I recognize that, you know, this is a pretty standard fare, and typically with store picks you see 2 different things people do. They either go the most iconic on-profile tasting, or they'll go with something that's totally off-profile, totally different. Let's figure out what Japan is. Alright, so black is the 80 proofer. I've got to get that one right. I didn't! Wow, guys. The Blanton's Black, the 80 proofer, is number 5. And number 5 was one of my favorites. I did note it was light, I did know it was fruity, but I really thought that was a creative choice. I would never have guessed that that was because it was the lowest proof. I usually think of myself as someone who likes higher proof whiskeys. Maybe I'm learning something about myself today. This is going to do something to my psyche. Now, Blanton's Red is the standard proof Blanton's, but it's the Japanese release. It's F. Number 1. Didn't care for Blanton's Red. That's really interesting. Now, I will say all of this kind of comes with an asterisk, because Blanton's is a single barrel product. Barrels vary a lot, batch to batch, so all this could be, you know, kind of thrown out the window. But number 1 being the Japan-only release is good for me because I didn't really care for it. I talked so much shit about Blanton's straight from the barrel being number 6. If I'm wrong on this, I don't even know what to fucking do with myself. Straight from the barrel, C. It's C. Thank God. That means that Blanton's Gold, A, goes here in the 3 spot. What did we learn? I don't know, man. I think what we really learned today is that, first off, single barrel products vary. But number 2, and perhaps more importantly, branding makes a big difference. If you think something's going to be good, you will assume it's good. If you think something's going to be bad, you will assume it's bad. Well, guys, I hope you learned something today. I certainly did. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my assumptions. I learned a lot about what branding does to a person. Go based on what you like the taste of. Don't worry about what other people think, because I would say that my favorite was the lowest proof, and I would probably catch some shame for that in a lot of bourbon groups. Don't feel ashamed of, you know, liking what you like. It happens. Alright guys, I gotta get out of here. I would say I'm going to drink some more of these, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think I'm going to go drink some water and eat some dinner. 6 whiskeys is a lot to try in a blind tasting. Back to back to back like I've just done in the last hour. But I hope you all had a great time. Please consider joining the Patreon. Please consider subscribing. Click the bell. Anything you can do to help support the channel. I love it. Happy Mother's Day. Celebrate the people in your life that you love. I'll see you next time.